Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the DCL Duo podcast brought to you by My Path Unwinding Travel. And this is a bonus episode, so we are also brought to you by WDW Magazine and DCL Magazine. If you have not yet put your name on the list for DCL Magazine, I would recommend you do so right away. It is dcl-magazine.com, and you can be on the wait list for the Disney Cruise Line specific magazine. And if you want to buy anything in their shop, in the WDW Magazine's shop, feel free to use bonus code DCL Duo, that's all caps, in order to get 10% off your purchase. So I am super excited today. As you can tell, it's just me, no Brian, because I did the show intro, as I like to remind people. If you hear my voice at the beginning of the show, that means Brian is not with me for the day. But I'm super excited to have a lovely, wonderful guest. First time on our show, but not a first-time cruiser, Meghan, to the show. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you very much. I'm so excited to be here. I feel like it's cheesy, but it's like a dream come true.
Oh, I love that. And I love that you're wearing your mini ears today. You've got sparkly mini ears on. Love it. Love it. I am wearing actually, it's one of these, I can't remember the brand, but it's got a bunch of ears on the back. It's actually
fun.
yeah.
Kind of match.
Exactly.
I asked my husband, I was like, is this too much? And he was like, no, go for it.
No, not at all. Not too much at all, Meghan. I love it. Well, before we dive into the show topic for today, I want to start by asking you to give us a little bit about your cruising background, Meghan, and how you got into Disney cruising. And of course, your Disney background. Where does your love for Disney come from?
Awesome. Okay. Honestly, prior to 2022, my only Disney experience, other than, of course, I loved the movies. I went to the parks once in the early 90s with my parents. I was only 4 or 5 years old. But beyond that, the Disney allure didn't really pull me in for quite a while. Once my husband and I started having kids, though, there's that pull. There's, you feel like you've got to take your kids to the most magical place on earth. But I was really overwhelmed by the planning process for the parks. I had just heard so many people talking about dining reservations and fast passes and, where do you stay? And so I held off. And then I read a blog post about somebody that took a Disney cruise. And she spoke so highly of it and made it sound so fun. And Castaway looked incredible. So I thought this might be the perfect way to experience the Disney magic without having to plan the parks. You can just basically show up on the ship. And so we booked our first cruise for May of 2020, which obviously did not happen. And we kept canceling and rebooking and canceling and rebooking. And it was actually during that time period, I was just so desperate for any cruise content that I found your show.
Oh, nice.
And we finally made it on our first cruise in May of 2022 on the Dream. And loved it. We were hooked immediately. It was so much fun. So then we went back the next May of 2023 on the Wish and loved it even more.
Oh, wow.
The Wish blew us away in all the best ways. And then this May, we went on our first multi-generational cruise. We brought along my parents, brought along my aunt and uncle and my cousin, and we all went on the Magic. And
nice.
Loved the Magic too. I was a little bit worried about going from the
now you've got different classes, Dream class, then Wish class, and then Magic class. That's definitely a weird progression.
Loved them all. I feel like they all have things that kind of almost beat each other. They all have places where they're kind of the best. And then it was that trip though, our trip in May. We went ahead and did our first kind of land and sea vacation. We made it to the parks.
Nice.
And instantly we're hooked. I mean, we knew we were parks people, the first 10 minutes in Epcot, we were parks people. So much so that we said, okay, we've got to go back this year. We can't just go once. So we planned kind of a Halloween land and sea. Mm-hmm. So we were going to go to Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party, but Milton had other plans. our party was one of the ones that was canceled due to Milton. So we flew in a day later and we did the infamous 4 parks in one day challenge.
Oh, you
Our trip was cut
did?
short. Yes.
The
And
hurricane cut you short, so you're like, we're
Yes,
gonna
we were
go,
like,
we're gonna
no.
be nuts.
Yes, we're going to be nuts. And it was so much fun. We loved it. It was crazy, but I think I took like 35,000 steps, but
Oh my
it was
God.
so much fun.
I
And
have to
then-
ask you a
Oh, yeah.
question
Yes.
about the 4 park challenge. Did you guys use Disney transportation? Did you use your own transportation? Were you on a VIP tour? Like because these things are like, this is a really hard thing to do
Yeah.
on your own.
And we didn't even land until 3. So like we did it all. I know. When I say it was because we didn't even know that morning if we were going, like we live in Colorado. So we got to Denver's airport, not even knowing because the airport was closed.
Yeah.
The day before. So we didn't even know if we'd make it.
Yeah.
So it was like 10 a.m. when we got on our flight and it seemed like we were going to make it. So we got on our phones and like bought our lightning lanes. And we were like, we're just going to do it. So we had private transportation from MCO to the parks.
Okay.
And we started at Magic Kingdom. And then we did, we love minivans. I just feel like they're the most
What did you do with your luggage?
So our private transportation drops it off as long as you're staying on a Disney resort.
Oh,
so
that's
they drop
fantastic.
you off at the parks and then they take your luggage to luggage services.
Okay. I need to ask you which private transportation this is.
So I love it. I found out about it on Instagram through a travel agent. It's called Away We Go.
Okay.
We've used it now on both trips. It's private. They're quick. They're friendly. They're very informative. You know, like if you have any Disney questions, and they've taken our first trip. They dropped us off at the Riviera so that we could eat, and then took our luggage to Art of Animation. So they'll kind of do whatever you want to do.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's fantastic.
But yeah, we use the minivans. It's kind of an extra magic touch, you know, to get in the car. And that was in between all of the parks. And then at the end of the day, we just used Disney's bus to get
back to Riverside. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. How old are your kids?
So I've got 3 kiddos, but only my older 2 do have autism. Severe enough that this wouldn't be a fun vacation for them. So they stay back with grandparents. And this is kind of an opportunity for us to then spoil our youngest with some attention and one-on-one time. She's 11, or she's going to be so mad. She's 10. Sorry, Emmy, if you listen to this. But my daughter, Emma, is 10. So that was our travel party this time. It's just the 3 of us. My husband, Patrick, me, and Emma.
Awesome. Now, so this was a land and sea Halloween trip. Yes. Wow. I can't imagine doing, I will tell you, we are trying a 4 park challenge next month. And we're recording this in middle of November. So by the time this may come out after we've already done this, we're doing a 4 park challenge. But I have to confess, we're doing it with a group and we're doing it on a VIP tour, so it's going to be different. So
yours is going to beat mine.
We've never done a VIP tour at Walt Disney World. We have done it at Disneyland a couple of times now, and so it's definitely a different experience. And they will transport you from park to park and whatnot. So that'll be So we probably won't do a show on that, but we'll be sharing, of course, on our Instagram and all of those.
I can't wait to follow along. It was really fun. You know, and because it was the day after, like the parks were closed the day before. Right. And so they were closed on Thursday. We were there on a Friday. Even though we had just bought our lightning lanes that morning, we were still able to get the lightning lanes for all the rides we wanted. In fact, there were some we didn't, I got, but we couldn't even use because there just wasn't enough time. Yeah. And then we bought single pass rides. So we still got, it was very fun. I won't do it again, but yeah, so, and then the cruise that we'll talk about, was the Fantasy for Halloween on the High Seas. So that puts us at 4 of the 5, almost 6 ships.
Yeah. So it's just the Wonder that you haven't hit then.
So I don't know if we go do Alaska. That is on our bucket list. If we do just a quick little Mexican cruise just to mark it off, Well,
and you're in Colorado, so it's not like it's too far to fly to San Diego to sail on one of those.
To go to the West Coast.
Yeah. So sailing on, you can if it works out, I would say if you want to do Alaska, then of course do Alaska. But if you do want to get one in sooner, then maybe you can make
Yeah.
Alaska happen. Then, try for one of those spring break options because they do a short spring break season on the Wonder out of San Diego. They tend to be 4 and 5 night itineraries. Is the only negative about it.
I'd love to go to Catalina. That's always been on my list anyway.
Yes.
So that would be fun.
Oh, perfect.
Cabo.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're both always go to Ensenada, and then they'll either go to Catalina or Cabo. That's sort of the typical itinerary for 4 or 5 night cruise out of San Diego. All right. Well, let's dive in and talk about this fantasy sailing you went on, Halloween on the High Seas. We're doing this as a bonus show, so we're going to focus on just a couple of topics. I want to, of course, focus on the Halloween on the High Seas aspect of the cruise because that's always fun. People like to hear about those events. And I, of course, want to talk about you went to Lookout Cay, and we want to definitely get an update on how things are at Lookout Cay, and of course your experience and how you thought it compares to Castaway.
Yes.
So let's start with the planning process. I mean, when you're planning for this cruise out of Port Canaveral, I presume,
Yes.
And you hadn't sailed on the Fantasy before, but you had sailed on the Dream.
Right.
And you hadn't sailed to Lookout Cay before,
No.
but you had sailed on Castaway, or to Castaway. What kinds of things did you do to prepare? Any are there videos you wanted to see? Did you want to be surprised? Like, obviously there's differences between the Dream and the Fantasy, and there's differences between Castaway and Lookout. But I'm curious as to whether or not you wanted to do that deep dive or be just surprised.
No, I am a deep diver. I am the deepest of divers. I'm obsessed, and I find so much joy in all the research and all of the planning. That's honestly, I could almost argue that it's even more fun for me is the pre-trip, than the actual trip. And so along with, obviously my kids go to school along, it's almost an hour drive each way. So when I'm in the car, I'm podcasting.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
love it.
From Brian's very first trip to Lookout, I mean, I've been listening to podcasts and YouTube videos and tours. So I wanted to know everything before we went. So very little was a surprise, as far as kind of what to expect. And that was both for Lookout and, like you said, Halloween on the High Seas. I tried to watch. I figured not much changed year to year. So I watched a lot of vlogs from previous sailings of on the Fantasy for Halloween. So
yeah, not much does really change, I would say, as far as like what the availability of activities and things like that. The costumes do change over time. The character costumes have changed. But I think that's a good thing, right? It's
absolutely.
Nice. Yeah, always fun. Nice to get a new costume. Yeah. Well, let's dive in and talk about the Halloween on the High Seas aspect first. What kinds of things or activities did you and your husband and your 11-year-old, what kinds of things did you all enjoy on board?
So, and I will mention a lot of this was for my daughter. She's always wanted to do a Halloween on the High Seas sailing.
Oh,
I'm not sure it was necessarily on my bucket list. I wasn't opposed to it, but she sought that out, and we were excited to do that for her. So let's see. The first thing that I remember that was kind of an issue was trick-or-treating was obviously one of the things that we were most excited for. And that was on Nassau Day. And we had a beautiful Nassau Day. I mean, perfect weather. We were out on the pool deck all day. And then like 5:36 came along, and the trick-or-treating was going to be at like 6:30. And I mean, the skies opened up and rain, like you couldn't see Atlantis. I mean, that's how hard the rain was coming down. Yeah. So they had to move it indoors. And I think that it made it a little more chaotic and crowded. And I feel like some people didn't quite know what was happening. So it wasn't the smoothest process. And it also, I don't know, I don't want to say it was less magical than we thought, but it was very much just a crowd of people moving along.
Chaos. Yeah.
And then like just candy being poured into your bag,
Yeah. I will tell you, so it's been a long time since we did a Halloween on the High Seas, but when we did one was actually, I think, Nathan's first sailing. We really enjoyed it, but the trick-or-treating portion, we didn't really enjoy either. It was just chaos. I think we had different spots that we went to on the ship. If I remember, there was one up on the pool deck, but then the rest were like in different places. Like one was by the theater.
Like basically just cabanas.
Yeah.
And they just like all of the ship was just trying to get through cabanas.
In through cabanas. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And honestly, I felt like even though we had to go to different places, it was chaos and it wasn't.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a bummer, but we dressed up. We picked Frozen themed costumes. So I was Anna, my daughter was Elsa, and then my husband was Kristoff, and he had Sven. So that was like, that was super fun. That's my daughter was most excited to just go all out in Disney costumes. Nice. So we did that, and then we wanted to see all the characters dressed up and get all of our photos. The photos were maybe that was the most important thing for me. Yeah. They always are. And everyone knows that they just have to do that for mom. And now as far as the show at night, the Halloween show at night, we didn't go to it. This was the first cruise that my daughter was in Edge. We got to sign her into Edge. And she made friends and she wanted to be with her friends. And so
wow.
we were kind of like, if she's going to be busy, then we're going to go do our own thing.
Yeah.
So we skipped out. I felt a little guilty for not kind of taking part in one of the main like Halloween things, but it gave us more time to enjoy the ship that wasn't as crowded. So
yeah. Absolutely. You know, I love when I hear from parents about how their kids like made friends in the kids club, and so much so that it gave parents some time to just like relax and recuperate. Because I feel like, you know, that's one of the major differences I see between a parks trip and, you know, and a cruise. Because in the parks, there really isn't. In the past, there have been sort of kids babysitting type things that were available at certain resorts, but generally speaking, I don't know if there is any of them still currently in operation, but like it's not a relaxing vacation. You're running around, you're doing a million things.
Not at all.
Yeah. And on a cruise with your children, it can be a relaxing vacation at times, but it is it can be more relaxing if they really enjoy the kids club and give you a little bit of time to spend, you know, either in Cove Cafe or on the adult pool deck or in one of the bars. It's just such a lovely thing. How did she like, so she was 10, but you signed her into Edge. For those who don't know, Edge is typically for 11 to 14-year-olds and Vibe is for 14 to 17-year-olds. And so 14-year-olds can go to either. 10-year-olds are typically in the Oceaneers Club or Oceaneers Lab. But if they're not at sort of full capacity of tweens, they will let you basically sign a waiver to allow a 10-year-old. You have to be so kids can only age up. They cannot age down at all. Disney is very firm on that policy. And the aging up is only allowed if they're in, I believe, 1 year of that club. So basically 13-year-olds can age up into Vibe and 10-year-olds can age up into Edge. And that's pretty much it. You can't age up from the nursery. That's one thing that they don't allow. And I'm sure that's for reliability reasons. But so you decided to do that. What was the discussion about that like? I mean, was it motivated by your daughter? Was it motivated by you guys? Like, did you think she would like that club better? Or sort of how did this come to be?
So what's funny is one of the main reasons we took this cruise was she did want a Halloween on the High Seas. But after they changed the age limits for Oceaneers Club, you know, we realized that, spoiler alert, our next cruise is next May. On the Wish, we realized she'd already be aged out of the kids club. And so I wanted to give her one more cruise where she could go to the kids club. So that's actually one of the main reasons we booked this. But I thought just in case, like, let's get her introduced to the Edge, you know.
Good idea. Before she has to go there.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Just to kind of show her like it can be fun, you know, exactly. So that then next time she would already be familiar with it. So then joke was on us, though. She didn't go to kids club one time. Like we did the open house, but she made friends and I think she loved that they didn't actually have to be in Edge, you know, like they could, if they were friends and they wanted to go get ice cream, they're allowed to go do that. If they want to, you know, go play Midship Detective Agency, they're allowed to go do that. So I think that freedom is something that she really enjoyed. And it was great. And because she wasn't really a big fan of the kids club. She would do it, for like an hour, but that's really it. She's never been a huge fan. She likes to spend time with us. And this was the first cruise like where she was content spending time with friends. So that was exciting.
Now, did you put, limits or rules on her as to like where she could go, where she couldn't go, or if she needed to communicate with you all, like where she was going at times? And if so, how did you sort of do that?
Honestly, she's a really well-behaved kid. She's we've never had any issues with her behavior. So I trust her a great bit. And so we didn't really put any limits. It is a ship. I didn't think she couldn't go anywhere she really wasn't supposed to. She has her iPhone. iMessage works and the cruise messaging app works. She never didn't respond if we texted her. So I felt comfortable with where she was at. I guess the only rule I would say is, I wanted to eat dinner with her, but she always knew when to come back for dinner. So that was really my only, honestly, rule, is that we still, made it back to the room in time to get ready for dinner together. So,
yeah. Well, and I think, if you've got a kid who has demonstrated some independence and some responsibility, I think that's great. Nathan, when we first let him go to Edge at just this past year, also at age 10, we just told him, no going into other people's rooms or letting people into our room unless it was somebody we knew already. And, other than that, don't go into secure areas, right? Like message us when you're, where you're going to be, basically. Just let us know. Yeah. Let us know where you're going to be. And he knew he could get, ice cream like your daughter on the pool deck. Yes. Burgers and fries on the pool deck. He's not really interested in going into cabanas to get food, so he never went there. But he's always interested in the pool deck food. And if there was some place we needed him to be, we sort of told him when to meet us, either back at the room or at dinner. Actually, he would always be early for dinner. We'd be like, "Where are you guys?" And he'd be
checking in on you.
Exactly. So I think with those limits, and I think. The one thing I know folks have asked us is advice on if you don't have a phone, sort of what to do. Yeah. And that I think is a harder, because, not being able to get in touch with your child, I think is a tough scenario to be in. I think that if you don't have an iPhone, of course, you can still use the Disney the app to message people. But, if you have another smartphone, like an Android. But I tell people, you could always have like an iPad that uses iMessenger and leave that in your room. Obviously, the kid's not going to take it to the kids club, but make them go back to the room and message you that they're back at the room, and then you can meet them and go to your next activity together. That would be like sort of the second best, I think, option. Or if you have like a whiteboard on your door where you can sort of leave messages for each other of where you're going to be.
I've seen that. I think it would, I'm not sure how it would work for us without a phone. I would be a lot less.
Same.
Yes.
Yeah. I would not give him the same freedom without the phone, because I feel like the phone lets me contact him and him contact me if there's something, going on. Yeah.
I agree. Yeah. I totally agree.
Yeah. But I do think there are options if people are anti, smartphone. And I get that. There are those options, but those options just are a little bit more limiting. And I feel like, there's some safety things that exist in that scenario. Well, I love that she loved Edge.
Me too.
Yeah, that's just awesome. Especially now that, as you mentioned, you're going on the Wish next year. She's going to be forced. I hate to say forced. Yeah. She's not going to be allowed now that the age limit is 10. Well, let's talk about Lookout Cay, because I feel like that is, I know that's the reason you reached out to us. Brian put sort of a call out to folks who had been to Lookout Cay more recently, because we haven't been since June, since we sailed right when she first opened. And we were just curious as to, how things are going at Lookout, what people's experiences are at Lookout. I'd love to hear, Meghan, what your thoughts were on Lookout in terms of especially comparing it to Castaway, because it's I feel like that's the thing everybody's going to do is compare it to Castaway. Yeah.
That was literally the first thing my mom texted me was like, well, how is it compared to Castaway? I feel like that's the only thing everybody wants to know. And just spoiler alert. Spoiler alert, I loved Lookout. I loved it. But on the other, if I had to pick only one island to ever visit again, I still would pick Castaway. But thankfully, I don't have to pick. I can go, to I can pick any cruise I want. So I look forward to going to both of them. So I guess, to answer that initial question, yes, I think Castaway wins, but I still think Lookout is an incredible vacation. I think the first thing that everyone talked about in the beginning was the pier. Now I'm a walker. That's my chosen form of exercise anyway. I love to walk. And I walk many miles a day. So it didn't bother me in the slightest. The length, at least. The one thing I will say though is the lack of shade is disappointing. Yeah. It is really, really hot. We went on a very hot day. It was gorgeous, and I love heat. I'm from Colorado. We don't get enough heat. I want to bake in the sun, and we baked. And I keep thinking Disney's going to do something about that. Add some shade, but I don't know. That would be my only complaint. It's a hot walk.
Yeah.
I was sweating in places I didn't want to sweat.
Well, and that is so weather dependent, right? Because
that's true.
I think the first time we went, we had quite a bit of breeze. Well, the first time Brian went, he didn't have any breeze.
I remember
he was dying because it was not the length. It's just he was dying on the island because he was zigzagging all over to see everything and film everything and experience everything. And so, if without a breeze, it can be really, really brutal. But when we visited, when I visited, of course, with him, shortly thereafter, I think both times we were there, we had a nice breeze. And so it wasn't, it was hot, and it was hotter on the way back, of course, because on the way back, it's the end of the day and you're already hot and tired from a day out in the sun and sweaty. Exactly. So it was worse on the way back, but on the way out, definitely the ocean breeze helped. But I agree with you. I mean, there is a potential for Disney to put some canopies or something. To help.
To bring up, the other island, the perfect day. But, they have those really pretty colorful canopies. And I know their pier is shorter, but just something like that, you know. But, and then I loved, though, that they have the photo spot on the pier that you can take that iconic picture with your ship behind you. It is, I think, like the best photo. I made everybody stand there and we were all drenched in sweat, but I got my photo. I loved, that when you get right there to Mabrika Cove, that you can shop right away. Like they've got that little stand.
Yes,
I literally shopped immediately and got a few things. Didn't even wait to get to the main part of the island. Trams were constant. We didn't wait a single second for a tram. I mean, there were trams loading when we got there, and there were trams already coming up behind. So there was no issue waiting for a tram. I will say the tram, it was a hot ride though, because you're on that for like 8 or 9 minutes, and you're already hot from your walk, and then you kind of sit there with everybody next to you, and that was sweaty. I won't lie about that.
And if you sit on one of the end seats, depending upon which direction, right? Yes. You may be getting full sun also. Yeah. So it's. You don't always know which side is going to be the shady side versus going to be the sunny side, and it's going to change depending on, the day.
Yes.
But if you're on the side that the sun is hitting, you are baking.
It's a hot ride. I will say one of the first things I noticed though, because I hadn't watched a ton of vlogs since when it first, there was that, when everybody went on all the media cruises, there were so many vlogs that came out, and then there hadn't been a ton that I had watched since then. The landscaping had grown so much just since those initial sailings.
Oh, that's so cool.
I was really impressed by how quickly it had already grown, because it was, you saw it. I mean, it was brand new. It was sparse at that time.
Yep.
But so that was a lovely surprise at how much it had already grown in. So I can't imagine what it'll be like, even by next summer. Trying to think. Then we got there, and we just wanted to see the beach. The first thing, we're beach people. That is our happy place. So I had heard for so long what a beautiful beach it was. So I just wanted to get down there. So that's the first thing we did when we got off the tram. And it was absolutely, it almost didn't feel real. It almost felt like you were,
it's magical.
Like it's all the backgrounds that you used to see like on a computer that you could just, it looked fake. It's so beautiful. And everyone had talked about the sand. And I had warned my daughter, like, don't expect hot pink sand.
Right.
But I mean, when you pick it up, there are hot pink flecks in it. Like, it is beautiful. It felt like powdered sugar. I mean, It was just the most amazing sand to walk on.
Isn't that, I feel like that sand is better than the sand at Castaway.
Absolutely. It is. I don't think I've ever, I've been to California beaches. I've been to Florida beaches. I don't feel like I've ever felt sand like that. It was amazing sand. It's so fine. It's so soft to walk on.
I think when we went to, I can't remember if it was Aruba, but it was like one of the Southern Caribbean places, and it had sand like that. But it's literally like the only, I think, 2 places I've ever been that had sand that fine, that soft, that amazing. Yeah.
Amazing. It's then less, it's almost less hot to walk on too when it's that fine. Like it's just, so yes, you're right. Absolutely better sand. The water felt incredible. And I don't know if that's just because we were so hot, maybe, but it was so refreshing to get in the water. And I think that is where Lookout simply beats Castaway. I don't even think that's arguable.
Yeah.
The beach is just so, it's a real beach. At Castaway, it's a lagoon, and it's a very fun lagoon, and it's beautiful, and I love it. But Lookout is a beach lover's paradise. I mean, I wish I could go back right now. The waves crashing, because that's one thing you don't really get at Castaway is waves, because it's protected. Yeah. And we love to walk in waves. I love to feel it crashing on my feet. I love the sounds. And so that's what we did. We played in the water for a little bit. My husband got a drink. And then we walked all the way down. When you go down to the right, there's all the cliffs down at the end.
Yeah.
So we walked all the way down to the end, to the cliffs, which, by the way, if you just walk down a little ways, you basically get a private beach. Like, everybody kind of congregates in the same place, but there is so much beach that you can very easily just have a private beach to yourself. So we walked all the way down to those cliffs, which are stunning. They're so beautiful. Castaway has nothing like that, Yeah. We got our photos. Like I said, we enjoyed just kind of having the beach to ourselves and playing in the water. And
did you check out some of the activities? Like, I forget what it's called, but it's like a Fun in the Sun bash or something like that has like a character kind of show. It's and then it has some activities that they usually have, like Connect Four and cornhole type stuff. And then of course the center. Gosh, I'm blanking on the name, but the center where they do all the Junkanoo stuff.
The Junkanoo celebration, or the Junkanoo Rush. Is that the parade? We did do the parade, and that was actually, I don't want to say it was on accident, but it was. We went to shop at the Bahamian retail space, which I was so excited to shop in. I'd seen that on vlogs, and I thought they did such a better job with that than they do on Castaway. Yes. And I was excited to shop for souvenirs there. And it's really cool. I'm going off topic, but when you are shopping, you are literally buying it from the person who created it.
Who makes it. Yeah.
It's amazing. But we were shopping there, and all of a sudden the parade started. And so it was on accident, but it was so much fun. It is such a lively celebration. And I remember, I think Brian saying this on one of your guys' podcasts. It's really cool that it's not Disney crew members doing it, that it is the locals. And that just makes it feel so much more authentic. And you can just tell that they are so proud to have you on their island and to be sharing their culture with you. And there's something very infectious, and exciting about that.
Yes, absolutely. I love that they're sharing the culture with Disney guests who are typically Americans who have not ever seen that, seen those sort of cultural experiences of the Bahamians before. I also love that they're giving jobs, of course, to Bahamian artists and artisans and performers. It's just like such a rich addition to, I think, the Disney portfolio in doing that. Yeah, it's fantastic.
And that's where Lookout, clearly beats Castaway too. That's another area where Lookout Cay comes out way on top of Castaway, I think, is just the culture aspect. we there was an artisan there who sells jewelry that she makes out of shells. And she literally has the shell that she uses, next to the jewelry. So you can see that, earrings came from a conch shell. And it was really great. We were able to get a picture with her, with my daughter, holding the earrings that we then gave to my mother-in-law as a souvenir. And I just think, like, what a better souvenir, or, to show literally who made your gift, where it came from. I just think that's really neat that they do that. And that was a very fun experience. And I'm glad that Lookout provides that, because that's honestly, on most Disney vacations, you just don't get that aspect of culture,
Yes, absolutely. What did you What did you think of the Disney Tings shop? So the Disney actual shop, because we always, we talk about Castaway. They don't like change the merchandise enough. They often don't have enough supply of the merchandise. They are sometimes limited in sizes and things like that. And it's been better, I would say, in recent years than it has been in the past, but it's still limited. We felt like Lookout, of course, we were there when it first opened. So of course it was fully stocked with merchandise. I'm curious, did it appear to be fully stocked, lots of availability? And what did you think of the variety of stuff?
Yes, fully stocked. There was, for one, it was a very nice new, I do like how clean and nice and fresh it feels, the shopping space. Not that I don't love Castaways too. You feel like you've come across some like shipwrecked place to shop, but Lookouts was fully stocked. It had great merchandise. I feel like so much more than just t-shirts. And I love t-shirts. I buy all the t-shirts, but so much more than that. Like, really nice pullovers and zippered, sweatshirts. And we spent a ton of money because we love Disney souvenirs. But no, I loved it. There was so many things to choose from. In fact, it was challenging to pick what I wanted to buy, But yes, I feel like they had a great setup. It was very easy to walk around. I liked that you could shop outside, you could shop inside. They had cashiers outside too, which I just kind of felt like spread people out. I thought that was wonderful.
Yeah, I love that, the way that they've spread out the cashiers.
Yes, that makes so much sense.
Yeah. And even so, I mean, the shops can still get mobbed, especially when it first opened. Like that opening day, the shop was mobbed. But like later in the day, it was so easy, especially with those multiple, pay stations. Yes. Absolutely. Well, we've got to talk about, the most important thing, which is food.
Food. I knew that was coming. Yes.
Right.
No, and I did want to talk about that. For one, I was nervous about flies. And I know it had been months, and I know certain people had said that there were no flies, but I was nervous, and I am happy to report I literally did not see a single fly. I mean, kudos to Disney. They completely eradicated the issue. There was not a fly to be seen.
Wow. Did they have those little table fans out or not even? Oh yes, they still had them out.
They do still have those. And then they have, and I don't know if this was for the heat or for flies, but it was one thing I loved. They had ginormous fans just all around blowing, in the covered eating areas. So whether or not that was for flies or for the heat, it was working for both, because it was incredibly refreshing, to have that air blowing on you. Yeah. But it also, just not a single fly to be seen, nowhere near the food. But that brings up one other point that I wasn't expecting. That morning on the ship at Cabanas, you are not allowed to eat outside. They have that completely shut off.
Oh, interesting.
And I think that's because I heard that flies were coming on the ship. And so they obviously eradicated that as well. They've just taken away that option. So
yeah, that makes total sense. So we, of course, were on Lookout Cay, so we didn't eat. Yes. We didn't eat on board while docked at Lookout Cay, but I had heard that from some other folks too, that people who had stayed on board or had gone back on board and were eating outside on the pool deck were having a problem with the flies because they were just basically migrating from the island to the ship. Yeah, so I think that's super smart of Disney to do. Is it a bummer if you can't eat outside? I guess, but you can always just go in Cabanas and eat.
Yeah, dealing with flies.
Yeah, exactly. The minor inconvenience of going inside and sitting in the air conditioning.
Exactly. Yes. No, because we actually love to eat outside, but it gets hot, and so it was actually kind of nice that morning to be like, oh shoot, we'll have to sit inside and stay cool. It was kind of nice.
That is.
But as far as the food goes, we were really excited for the spicy chicken sandwich. Like we had kind of hyped ourselves up on that. I was kind of excited to try the different paellas. They looked on video, they looked really good.
Yeah.
But and while the food, I'll go ahead and say it, the food was great. We enjoyed it. The eating experience was not great. And I will say that is, and I don't know if that was the time of day that we chose to eat, but it was a common complaint on my Facebook group. And even once we got on the ship, just kind of talking to people like in line for the aqueduct, people complained. The lines were insane. I think I waited like 40 minutes for food.
Oh my goodness. I've never waited that long for food at a Disney island. Yeah.
I know.
That's crazy.
And I'm sure clearly I picked the wrong time, and I'll take responsibility for that. When we saw the lines, we should have just said, no, we'll wait. But we had waited so long, we were really hungry, and you don't want to be hangry and hot. That's not a fun. So I waited in line. I picked the spicy chicken sandwich line. And
which food place did you go? The one that's to the right or the one that's to the left?
Let's see, from the tram station to the left.
Okay. I'm going to give a pro tip out there.
I think I made the mistake.
Go to I'm not saying it will be empty.
Yes.
It won't be empty, but the one to the right is closer to like the kids club
Kids club, yes.
Yeah. And that one is less crowded because the one on the left seems to be, it's closer to more of like the beach, right?
Yes. And it's just the first place you get to.
Yes. And so everybody just like sees that one. And so they go to that one because it's like a marginally closer.
Yes.
But if you walk just walk towards the kids club area, go to that food place. I can't remember which one is 2 and which one is 1, so I'm not going to say.
Yes, I agree.
But the one that's to the right, that's closer to the kids club, go to that one. I think it's less crowded because I don't know. I think it's like instinct, right? When you look at you look and that's what you see, you go towards that one food.
Literally, that's what we did. I mean, literally, we saw it. And so we went there. And so that's why I won't even necessarily count that as a negative to Lookout. I think it was more our fault. We didn't plan timing correctly and we didn't go to a different location. And I honestly, though,
they should have directed people, though.
Yes.
That's what they like. Yes. That's what I don't think it's, the way that the layout is done. I do think it just kind of naturally directs people to the one that's on the left, to the food place on the left. And so I feel like if they, which is one of them is true, and one of them is true too. Mm-hmm. And so I think if they see that one is getting crowded, they should just tell people, hey, there's another, this one has a really long line, but the other one that's just another, 5-minute walk, you're less than probably 5-minute walk, has no lines. You should maybe try heading over there.
I agree. That would have been, because I would have hopped, skipped, and jumped right over there, to be honest. I guess I was maybe just so hungry, it didn't even cross my mind. And I honestly just truly didn't think the line would take that long. I just couldn't fathom that we would be standing there. And I think my biggest complaint then with the way Lookout Cay's food works, there's different lines for different stations of food. And my line was the spicy chicken, hot dog, and cheeseburger, which all were delicious. But I did actually really want to try ribs. But once I got to the front of the line, I'd been in there for 40 minutes. I didn't want to then stand in line for ribs at another place.
Yes.
Whereas, at Castaway, you just are all in one big line and you can get whatever food you want.
Yeah.
I understand in theory what they were going for, but when there's crowds, I'm just not sure it worked as well. Now the paella line was super short. I'm not sure why people didn't want the paella, but my husband got in line for that and honestly got me a bowl and my daughter a bowl, and I was eating it in line. Yeah. I was so hungry and it was delicious. So
I think it's that less of the kids are adventurous enough to eat the paella.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I think it's just like, or it's like a Caribbean rice dish, but it's very similar to like a paella.
That's right, yeah. It was so good though. It was fantastic.
Super good. Yeah. And they have 2 different ones. One, I think that's seafood, and one that's maybe chicken. Yeah. And both are really good. But yeah, I mean, I think like Nathan would try that, but he wants the cheeseburger, right?
Yeah,
so I gotta stand in the cheeseburger line.
Yeah,
regardless. Yes. I gotta ask how the spicy chicken sandwich was. You were really looking forward to that.
I think after standing in line for like 40 minutes, we got like 4 of them. We were
I was gonna say, you got to get multiple.
Spicy chicken. Yes, and it was fantastic. So I've always, I'm still curious one day if I ever make it onto Royal. I've heard that Perfect Day has a really good spicy chicken sandwich. But as of right now, since I haven't tried it, I can say that Lookout wins.
Oh, nice. Well, they have, I didn't have the spicy chicken sandwich at, on Royal, but I did have like basically like a chicken parm sandwich.
Yes,
So
the
like it's
mozzarella
sticks. Yes. On
I've
the
heard about
sandwich.
that. Yes.
So
How was that?
that was good. It was good.
Okay.
Is it like the best thing in the world? No, but it's good. You know, their mozzarella sticks are good. I like mozzarella sticks. So, well, any other sort of, did your daughter check out Rush Out, Gush Out, which is that water play area? I think that was a big hit with Nathan. So I think that's a great addition too.
That is one thing I wanted to touch on. So we had an incredible day, but it was very hot that day. It was very, very hot that day. And, you know, you're just in the sun the entire time. And she's 10. She was having a blast. I don't think she knows how to necessarily recognize when she's overheating or getting too hot until she's already there and miserable. And she doesn't want to stop having fun. And so all of a sudden we were having fun until we weren't. And she was like, I just want to go back to the ship. And so then at that point, she didn't want to go to Rush Out, Gush Out. And I was disappointed. I wanted to slide. But I will say that's the only maybe big difference I felt. And I can't even put my finger on it. I felt like there was less shade at Lookout. I just felt like we got more hotter, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that that's Lookout's fault. I mean, it's this beautiful stretch of beach, but I do just feel like there was less shade and maybe because the beach is so big, we were walking more, you know, but my daughter did get just more hot and tired than she's ever gotten at Castaway.
Yeah.
And as a result,
I think it's a foliage issue too, right? Because you don't have the trees that are there haven't grown as high. And they're not as full. And so I think it's a combination of like the design of the, you know, of the space. And I think you're right, that it's a little bit more spread out and stuff. But I also think it's the foliage. And I hope as that grows, you know, the palm trees, that sort of a thing, as that grows, hopefully we'll get more, a little more shade. Yeah.
I was disappointed not to slide because Pelican Plunge is like my favorite thing at Castaway. So I wanted to compare the slides, you know. So we didn't get to do that, but that just means we have to go back.
Yes, absolutely.
Another thing I think Lookout completely beats Castaway was the showers. There are so many more showers to wash off the sand. I mean, because every bar has a bathroom and every bathroom then has multiple showers. Where at Castaway, unless you have a cabana where you have your own personal one, which is amazing, you know, you're going to that one that just gets disgusting and like everyone's lining up
and filled with sand and there's so many more. I think the bathroom situation and the shower situation is just way better. Yeah,
absolutely. So that was really nice. Trying to look at my list and see if there was anything else about the island. So one thing not a lot of people had mentioned, and you did mention that there was coral in the water, but I don't feel like many other people mentioned. There is coral in the water at Lookout, not so much rocks, but coral. And my husband did trip on a piece and he did cut his foot pretty badly. So I do think water shoes are beneficial, just as beneficial at Lookout as they are at Castaway. Because there's not a ton of coral, but it's just hard to see because what we noticed is the water is beautifully clear, but when there's a lot of people in one place, because the sand is so fine, it kicks up. Yeah. It kicks up. And so then the water becomes a little less clear. And so we couldn't see the coral and you just don't want to step on that coral barefoot. Yeah. And I hadn't heard that many people talk about that. So I did want to bring that up.
Yeah, that's a good point because it's not rocky like it is on Castaway, but there are these like large kind of pieces of coral and they're mostly like smooth edges, but you might have some sort of jagged edges here and there as well. And so, I think that's a good tip. You got to be, you know, like at any beach, you got to sort of notice and if you can't notice then definitely wearing some water shoes will help you there.
One thing we thought, I guess it just was, I don't want to say weird, but I mean it was just different than Castaway. You get so used to seeing the ship at Castaway, It's actually one of my favorite things. It's just everywhere you lay and relax, you see that beautiful
you
ship.
Can't at all.
Yeah. So
except from the cabanas. If you're at a family beach cabana. Yeah.
Yes.
Actually, it's
a great view.
Yes. You get the best view of the ship from the family beach cabanas, and you can take pictures of yourself in the water with the ship in the background. Like you can do at Castaway. Yeah.
Yes. So that's, that was just a difference that we noticed. Let's see here. One thing that we love at Castaway, we rent floats every time. I love floating in the ocean. It is literally like we spend hours just floating, at Castaway. And because this is an open ocean, obviously they don't have the floats to rent and I get it, they would just float away. But we did miss that. That is just one of those things we love. But the beach is so different that I thought that would actually be a bigger detriment. But I mean, we had so much fun in the water, because when you get to play in waves, that's just so much fun. So while I thought that would be a real big disappointment, it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. Just something for people to note if they're used to renting floats like we are.
Yeah. Did they have the bicycles available yet? No, you're shaking your head. No. Okay. No, still not available.
Someone in my cruise group was really hoping to do it. And they were not able to yet. So
yeah, I don't think they've finished the paths, the roads. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's the issue. I don't think it's like necessarily getting the bikes, but getting everything finished so that people can safely ride around.
That we rode the tram on, because I know when it first started, and I don't know if this was true for your cruise, but I know like the very first one, I don't even believe it was paved yet, because I heard a lot of people talking about how dusty it was.
Yeah, so there were portions. There was like a portion of it that was paved, but it wasn't paved the whole way when we were there. Yeah.
So it's a little less dusty. It's not the prettiest drive on the tram quite yet, because it is just still, it's all being worked on, but I love the little speakers that play on the tram though. With the Lizzie and Sandy, I think it is. I actually thought that was really adorable and sweet.
Yes, the crab and the lizard, the new characters of Lookout Cay. I love,
and it makes the tram ride go by quicker. I thought, like having something to listen to. I actually thought that was definitely a benefit. Let's see. I think that is. Oh, I think on your cruise, or a lot of people talked about, you guys got the fun aluminum cups to drink your drinks out of.
Yes,
we did not get those. They are back to just using clear plastic cups for us.
Oh, interesting.
Like when you're at the buffet, that's what they had at the buffet to get your sodas out of, was just clear plastic cups.
The sodas, gosh, I think at the buffet they had the clear plastic cups. If I'm remembering,
okay.
It was only at like the bars that we got that we got those metal cups. Okay. Yeah, so it was.
I thought that was also buffet. Okay.
Yeah, no, and it was for like for both non-alcoholic and alcoholic drinks, but they had different colors for those two options. And then, but at the buffet, it was still the clear plastic cups.
Speaking of the drinks, I loved that one of the souvenir cups that my husband was able to get at one of the bars was, honestly, I think it's a coffee mug. I would call it a coffee mug, but I had him get it just for me so that I could bring it home. It's a really nice souvenir cup, because typically, you can do the pineapple, you can do like the coconut, and we buy those because they're fun, but they're not something you're going to drink out of every day. But I got a really nice, like, coffee mug. Really that is what it is, but he was drinking a drink out of it. So that they have a really nice selection there too.
Awesome. Love that. Well, Meghan, thank you so much for sharing updates with us on Castaway. I was about to say on Lookout Cay. It's great to hear that. I think there's been essentially improvements, I would say, since we went there. It was obviously it was brand new. And with foliage growing, with flies being taken care of, I think that Lookout still has the potential to be better than Castaway in a lot of ways, because as you mentioned, there are things all inherently better.
Absolutely.
But Castaway is a well-run operation and is a beloved place for Disney Cruise Line fans. And so hard to know if it will ever, top Castaway in people's hearts, even if Lookout has a better beach. But
it's funny that it can win in so many ways. Because literally, I hear myself talking like it does beat Castaway in so many ways, but there's just something about Castaway that we all love, But I think I think that's what's great. Just go to both.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
you don't have to
Absolutely.
pick.
I love that. Well, Meghan, thank you so much for coming on the show. You are going on the Wish next year. Please
Yes.
come back and
Yeah.
join us both. Hopefully, Brian will be with me
I'd
for
love
that
to.
show, and we can do maybe a trip report and hear all
Sure.
about your next experience
I would
on
love
Disney
to.
Cruise Line. All right.
Perfect,
Awesome.
Sam. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to talk to you.